Hello, so we are back. This is our third time trying. I don't know what you're going to say in this one, but it's going to be good. So we're here with Mom doing Penny Pinch Mama, 500 Ways I Lived on $500 a Month. This is her book of the tips that she used, of actual practical things, how she did. And then we're telling the story of why she had to live on $500 a month and how she got by and those kinds of things. So we left off with the roof being needed to be repaired. So that's where we'll go.
Yes. So my roof was in really bad shape at this point. I had the swimming pool in there, and to dip things out, I'd been with dealing with this for 15 years. It would leak down through the living room ceiling, down through my bedroom ceiling, through the light fixtures, and get on the beds and the bedding and the mattress, and I have to drag the mattress out when it would rain and try to dry these things out all over the carpet. So it was just a nightmare having this roof. So one day we had this horrible Kansas storm, and I'm standing outside on our driveway just looking at all the shingles on the ground, and I thought, there surely can't be that many shingles left on my roof. It didn't feel like, but what was left was on the ground at this point. And I'm just standing there looking at these things. I wasn't even reacting because I didn't even know how to react to them. And I'm thinking, I don't even know what to do with this, with all the shingles. I had no money, of course. I was still paying off our debt and everything. And a guy came walking down the sidewalk towards me. He was the guy, if you guys have watched any of the other videos, and remember, I didn't have a lawnmower that was working, and he came and mowed my yard for me, and I felt like he was my gardening angel. Here was this guy walking down the sidewalk. I had not seen this man but like 3 to 4 times the whole time I lived there in 20 years. And here he comes one more time walking down the sidewalk to me. It was really odd because I just saw him at the strangest times. And he walks up and he was just shaking. He was shaking his head looking at the mound of shingles. And he said, you got hit hard, didn't you? And I thought, that's an understatement. And he said, have you tried calling your insurance company? And I said, well, no, I hadn't. And he said, you might try. I hadn't because I thought it was a pre-existing condition. So I wasn't sure they'd do anything about it. And he said, well, I would try. 99% of the time, they won't give you, anything for it. Because he said, I have lots of rentals. I do this all the time. And I never hardly get insurance claims done. And I thought, well, I guess, I wouldn't lose anything by calling them. I called them. And they said, sure, we'll send an adjuster out. I could not believe it. I was so excited. I mean, you've got to realize the struggle I'd gone through with this roof nonstop for years now. And to have this thing fixed, I mean, it was just beyond, I can't even describe what I was feeling. And so I was praying that God would send me a kind-hearted adjuster, and that he would help me, and he'd be friendly, and he'd be nice, and he would help me out in this situation, and he'd give me a good report and everything like that. The guy shows up, and I open up the door. I have never seen a more, I don't know how to tactfully say this, sourpuss man in my whole life. That man's countenance was like, if I could hate anybody else in the world, I'm going to try to do it. He wouldn't crack a smile. I introduced myself. He barely introduced himself and just said, come on, just show me what's going on the outside. I mean, his answers were abrupt and very few and far between, and I took him and was showing him all around the outside, and he wouldn't talk. Of course, I'm chattering. Here I'm going, yeah, chattering along, and he's just hardly acknowledging that I was even there. So finally, he said, well, show me the inside. Okay. I took him inside, and I showed him, where everything had come through, the different places, and all over, different places all over in the house. And you could see we'd put brand new sheetrock up on the ceiling, I told him, and it'd come through the new sheetrock, and I painted it, and all that was messed up at this point. Everything had been ruined, the new stuff that we'd put up there. And I was describing that to him. Well, so he finishes up outside, and this whole time he wouldn't crack a smile, nothing. And I was feeling a little bit, I thought this maybe isn't going to work like I thought. And he says, okay, I just need your signature here, and then I'm going to turn it into the insurance company. I said, oh, so will I get the roof? He said, yeah, you should. I am so excited. He goes on to say, not only will I get the roof fixed, he's going to give me money for new carpeting. I can't remember what the amount of money was. It was huge. It was huge. He was going to give me money for new carpeting throughout the whole one level of the house. He was going to pay for somebody to come in and paint the whole house, replace the taping and all that, and the sheetrock on the ceiling, doing that. Even like he was going to replace the light fixtures, just all kinds of crazy stuff I never even dreamed of. Huge amount of money. Listen, I was happy dancing. I tried to restrain myself. I wanted to hug, kiss that man. I couldn't believe it. I mean, all these years, I'm not only getting everything I need, but then, and then you guys will appreciate this, Mike. He was going to give me money to have the garage reshingled. Okay, this garage, it's an old house from the turn of the 1900s. It was early 1900s it was built.
I think the house was built in 1912, right?
1917.
Oh, 17, okay.
And this garage had been added later on at the back of the house, and I didn't even want the kids to lean against the walls of this garage because it had termite damage and dry rot, and I don't know how it was standing. I do not to this day know how it was standing. And he was going to give me money to have shingles put on it. I thought, I'm not going to allow a roofer up there. The walls would collapse on them. There was no way, but he was still going to give me money to have those done. I wish I could describe to you what I was feeling after all these years, of dealing with this. I can't even begin to describe the excitement. And he said, so just sign here and I'll turn it in. And all you have to do is you have to come up with $1,000 deductible, and you have to give us $1,000 because we don't pay for the decking, and we want to make sure you're going to pay for the decking and all before we give you the check for the shingles. So as soon as you give us the $2,000, we'll write you a check for all of this. You talk about crashing and burning. Where was I going to get $2,000? I mean, I didn't have it. I didn't have $20 standing there, let alone $2,000. I didn't have anybody I could borrow it from. I couldn't go to ATM and just pull out money off a credit card or anything. I had nothing. And you talking about an emotional roller coaster. I mean, I went from so excited to nothing. I mean, I couldn't believe, I didn't even know how to react. It was such a drastic change in emotions. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I said, just like I just said now, I told him I cannot do it. I don't have a penny and I can't get it from any place. And I apologized. I said, I'm sorry for wasting your time. I said, there's no reason for you to even turn that in. I said, because there's no way I can get any money at all. And the guy, he said, well, I've got to turn it in anyway just to prove that I did the work. So I'm going to turn it in no matter what. And I thought, okay, and I said, well, thank you for checking it out for me. And he said, that's fine. He said, I need you to sign it anyway. So I signed it. And he started walking down the driveway. And I'm just numb. I'm just numb. And out of the blue, it was like God said, I want you to pray that God will soften that adjuster's heart. I pray that I will pray. God wanted me to pray to soften the man's heart, the adjuster's heart, like Nehemiah prayed for the king. And I thought, well, that is so weird. Because first of all, the adjuster was no longer a part of this. Once I signed it, he said it goes into the insurance company. Why would I pray for this adjuster's heart to be softened? This prayer made no sense. And I'm thinking, where is this coming from? For those of you that don't know what Nehemiah's prayer was, Nehemiah is a book in the Bible, and he's a really cool man. If you could ever read that book through, he really did a lot of interesting things. But I'm going to take a moment here, if Tara and Michael let me, to give you a real quick Bible story, because unless you can understand what Nehemiah's prayer was, you won't totally understand what I'm talking about when God told me to pray to soften this man's prayer for this man's heart to be softened. In Nehemiah, the Israelites had been captured by another country and taken away from Jerusalem. And so many years, Nehemiah was one of the Jews that had been captured. And years went by, he became a cupbearer in the king's palace, which is a high up job. But I would not want to be a cupbearer. A cupbearer is not the job you want to have, because for those of you that don't know, a cupbearer, back then the way they loved to kill kings was to poison them. That was a real easy way to get rid of these kings. So they'd have a cupbearer to taste their wine or whatever and their food before they ate and drank. And that's what Nehemiah's job was. So if somebody poisoned him, Nehemiah would be kaput, you know. This is not a fun job. I wouldn't think, personally, I would want to keep this job. But anyway, Nehemiah, that's what his job was. Well, at some point in time, after many years, they went and told the Jews, you can go back to Jerusalem. Whoever wants to go back, you can go back. Well, some of them went back, but Nehemiah stayed with the king. He'd been there a long time, and I guess he felt he should be staying there. So he stayed with the king. Fast forward a few months, a year or something, I don't know how long. His brothers came back to visit him from Jerusalem. Nehemiah's family had gone there, but Nehemiah hadn't. And his brothers came to visit him, and Nehemiah said, how's it going? And the brother said, horrible. We have no walls in the city. We have nobody to build walls for us. We don't know what we're going to do. And you've got to realize they were very vulnerable at that time if you did not have walls. To compare it to nowadays, it would be like we didn't have any military, that we'd have no ships, no airplanes, no missiles. We wouldn't have a police force. And this is how vulnerable they were. And so Nehemiah told his brothers when they left that to pray, you know, for somebody to come help build these walls. So Nehemiah's praying with all of his might that God would send somebody for his family and the other Jews to build these walls. And I want to take a second here to tell you something. Sometimes we pray for a neighbor, for a friend, that God will send somebody to help them in their need. But sometimes we have the ability ourselves to help them. There's no reason why we can't. And so I know God probably gets frustrated with us praying, will you help so-and-so, God? Why don't you help them? You know, this is something I don't actually have to do. You have the ability, the resources, you help them. So you got to be careful in your prayers sometimes. Sometimes you don't need to pray these things. You just need to go do them, you know, and help these people. But Nehemiah was praying like crazy. And finally God said, Nehemiah, I want you to go help them. And Nehemiah said, I'm not a contractor here, God. Don't know the first thing about building a wall. Besides that, the king is not going to let me ask for time off. There's no way. He couldn't even go ask the king for time off. Because back in those days, if you spoke to the king before the king spoke to you, you would be beheaded. So he couldn't even go to the king and say, could I get time off here? And you think you have problems with your boss giving you vacation, Tara Jean. And so he went, and he just was so scared. So he prayed. He said, God, will you soften the king's heart? I'm going to go tomorrow, and I'm going to ask them. And he knew the chances were pretty good he was going to be beheaded for just asking the questions. So he was praying real hard that God would soften the king's heart and show favor to him. He gets in there that next day, and he's still trying to think of how to word it. And the king looks at him and he said, Nehemiah, what's troubling you? Why are you sad? First of all, God had softened the king's heart, and the king spoke to Nehemiah first and questioned him. So Nehemiah didn't have to worry about getting beheaded. But second of all, there's a little thing in this story that people overlook. The king said, you always have a good countenance, and you don't have one today. All those years that Nehemiah worked at this awful job, he was basically a servant. He could have gotten killed on his job. It wasn't the greatest job. He had showed joy and peace. He'd done it willingly and above and beyond the call of duty. And the king knew it and had noticed it. You don't think people are watching you? They're watching you. And if you're a Christian, you better get your heart in order here and start doing that job you hate so much, and do it with a little bit more joy, because people are watching you. And because he did such a good job and he did it with joy, the king was more than willing to help him. You know, he hadn't done a slothful job. And the king was said, not only did God soften his heart to allow Nehemiah to ask the question, but the king said, I'm going to send guards to protect you, because I don't want anything happening to you, because I want you to come back to me, because I like you so much. So I'm going to make sure you get there safely. They sent supplies. I mean, the king couldn't have made it easier for Nehemiah to go to build these walls. Take whatever time you want. So I wanted to give you that story to understand why I was kind of confused. Why was God asking me to pray to soften the adjuster's heart? He'd already given me, a good deal on the roof. Now it was up to the insurance company. And I knew I couldn't do it with what he'd written. So I did it anyway. I know now at this point I need to pray when God tells me to. So I prayed like crazy that God would soften the adjuster's heart. And then I kind of left it there. Yes, I was disappointed, but what could I do about it? There was nothing more I could do. So I went ahead and went about my business for that day, got the kids in bed that night, and was grabbing up more piano parts to start working on. And my phone rings. It was about 9 o'clock. And it was odd because nobody called. Everybody knew I didn't get many phone calls at that time, but to call me at 9 o'clock, that's kind of late for me. So it was rare for me to get a phone call. I thought, who in the world's calling? I picked up the phone, and it was the insurance adjuster. And he told me, he said, the first thing he started off with, he said, you said you painted the inside of your house, didn't you? And I said, yes. So do you think you can paint your house again? And I said, well, yeah. Well, do you think you can tape the sheetrock? And I said, yes, I can do that. And he listed like 3 or 4 things. And I said, well, yes, I can do all those things. He said, well, that's fine. That's good. He said, I have been working. I brought your papers home with me after work. He got off about 5, and he brought those papers home with him. And he said, I have been working on them, and I just got them finished up. And by juggling things around, moving things around, and figuring a lot of numbers out, he said, if you can do the painting and that, what we'll do, I don't know all the ins and outs how he did it, but he said, if you can do the painting and that stuff, we will take and deduct the deductible and the decking money from the check we were going to give you, and we'll just write you a check for that amount then that's left. I am just dumbfounded. I'm dumbfounded. I'm getting my roof. I mean, at this point, I wasn't even sure how to react now because I'd been so excited. I mean, it was like God had softened his heart. He had softened this adjuster's heart. I thought it was a silly prayer, and God had softened this man's heart. And I'm going to stop here for just a moment to tell you something. It's on a side. I didn't learn this for many, many years, or think about this for many, many years. And I'm not going to cry because I don't want the mascara to get messed up. This man, he had taken 4 hours of his time off of work. He didn't get paid for it, to help me. I mean, he didn't have to do that. I was just another client. He could quit at 5 o'clock, leave it with them, and come home. And he took 4 hours. He sacrificed 4 hours of his time. At this point in my life, I had friends, I had family members, church members. There wasn't lifting a finger to do anything to help me. And this total stranger did this for me. You do your job at work, you may hate it. But anytime you can, you do that job really good and you go above and beyond the call of duty. You may never get thanked for it, you may never know. But you don't know when you're going to change a person's life. And not only did this man change my life with this roof, and I won't go into it now, but later down the line, you're going to find that if it hadn't been for what this man did, I don't know if the kids and I would have survived. Things later on happened in our life that I don't know if we would have survived. I really don't. But because of what he did I don't know if he had a family and he took time from them. Wives, if somebody asks help from your husband because they're single or widow, you let him go down there and help them. You never know when it's going to be a turnabout and you're going to need somebody to help you. So don't resent your husband helping somebody sometime, or husbands vice versa. And I can't give you the full amount what this man did for me right now, but I will later. But he changed my life. So you start doing those jobs with joy, even if you hate the job, and go above and beyond the call of duty. This man was amazing. I mean, I thanked him profusely, but he'll never know. He'll never know what he did for us. Because not only did I get the roof fixed, a lot of repairs on the house done, but I was really close to getting all those debts paid off. I was really close. I only needed like 3 or 4 months to have it, and I'd have everything done. I had so much left over from this check that I paid the last of my debts off. I have a wonderful brand new roof. I have repairs done in the house that I needed so desperately bad. And I have no more debt. I was about 38 at the time, debt-free, totally debt-free. I had no mortgage, I had nothing. Because this man decided to take time to help me. I mean, you talk about life-changing. And so at this point, I didn't have to work at the counseling center because now the debts are paid. And I can just run the piano, do the piano parts, and we could probably live off of that.
Which was your own business, right? For people that might
yeah, that's my main business, yeah. The counseling center was kind of a side thing that just to give us a help. We lived off the counseling stuff so I could use all the money from the piano stuff to pay the debts. So I went and I had 2 job opportunities. Well, they were definite jobs. It wasn't like even a question I might get it or I could get it. They were absolute definite jobs that as soon as I got my training done and my license to do the family counseling, I was to start, and I had to just pick which one I wanted of one of these 2 places. So my license was maybe about 3 to 4 months off. And I thought, well, instead of doing a big upheaval, what I would do is get my license. I'll keep working at the counseling center. And then as soon as I got my license, I would go work at the new job. And that way, by staying at the counseling center, I could get a little bit of money set aside for savings because I had 0 savings at this point. But, I thought that would help. And so I thought, I'll just do that just keep things going for 3 or 4 months, After what I'd been through, that would be peanuts. So I was going to go ahead and keep working at the counseling center. And the new jobs I were going to get, okay, listen to this. I have my new roof, debt-free, the new jobs. You talk about things turning around and so wonderful. The new jobs were going to pay me the same amount of money that I was making at the counseling center, the piano parts, and Mary Kay combined. Actually, it was a touch more. So I was going to get that much money. I was going to have full benefits. I hadn't had medical for years and years and years. I had no medical. I was going to get full medical benefits. I was going to have a paid vacation. I've only had a paid vacation one time, and that was the first year I was married when my husband was in the service. Otherwise, never had a paid vacation. I'm thinking, this is exciting. I am just bouncing off the walls with excitement. So I had this all planned out, and I would just keep doing this until like the first of the next year and this was like in, I don't know, August, something like that. And I was just going to do it till January after Christmas and all that. Then I'd start my new job. And so I was just beyond excited. And one day, it was just a couple of weeks, maybe 3-4 weeks after we got the roof on. My son, David, comes home from school. It was on a Friday night. And he comes home, walks in the door. He says, "Mom, I'm not feeling good at all." He said, "I'm going to go take a nap. I'm really, really tired. I'm going to go lay down before supper." And I said, "Well, that's fine." He was about 15 at the time. I said, "That's fine." So I figured he was getting a cold, a flu, something. And supper time comes. I go upstairs to wake him up. I can't get him awake. I shake him, and I shake him, and I shake him, and he won't wake up. And he did wake up enough to just kind of moan at me. And I thought, well, maybe he didn't open his eyes or anything. He just kind of moaned at me. And I thought, well, maybe he just needs to sleep. He's just tired. He started high school for the first time. And I thought, teenagers and their sleeping habits. I came downstairs. I went up and checked on him every couple of hours. He was just dead to the world. Finally went up there before I went to bed to check on him one more time. He was still sleeping. I could feel he had a fever, and I got him awake enough. I mean, it was really hard, but I finally got him awake enough where he went into the bathroom. He came back, and I took his temperature, and it was about 103. Between 103, it stayed between 103 and 104. I started sponging him down a little bit to try to get his temperature down.
Because back then we didn't have ibuprofen or anything.
No, at that point. Well, you kind of used aspirin and stuff, but I don't know, we just didn't do it. You sponged him and stuff first, but it just, it was high enough. I was a little bit concerned. So I did that, the sponging that I normally would just maybe have given you something. I was up all night long. I'd go up every once in a while to check on him, and he just would not wake up. This went on all weekend long. Finally, come Monday, I thought, this is not a normal flu, type of thing. And so I got him into the doctor, and I can't remember, Tara, my son at this point was like 6'2", 6'3", and I had to drag him down from the downstairs, and he couldn't hardly walk to get him to the cars where I had to drag him and to take him.
So to put it in perspective, we don't have a picture. Maybe we could find one to edit it in. But we had these really steep stairs. Our house, the upstairs was a doctor's office, and it had an outside entrance. But it had there was probably, 20, 25 stairs. Yeah. And they were really, really steep. And my brother, he wanted to have the upstairs after some of the business was gone for his bedroom. So he was upstairs in that little apartment thing. But it was a chore to get down those stairs. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was really
steep. It originally had been a doctor's office when it was a house. At this point, it was just the house.
Yeah. And so I can't remember if you helped me get him downstairs or not. That I just remember trying to get him finally into the car, and I get him to the doctor's and get him in, and the doctor just said, well, it's just the flu. Just take him home, give him liquids, let him rest, that type of thing. And if he's not better by the end of the week, bring him in. Nothing changed. And this was kind of like the beginning of the end. I was so excited having my roof, being debt-free, was going to start my new job. And with this one incident, things just, our lives completely changed from this point on. I would run home from work. I still kept working at the counseling center I was still working there. So I would leave him home sleeping. I'd run home during my 15-minute break to check on him. He was still sleeping. I'd give him liquids, the best I could. Run home on my lunch break. I would get home as soon as I could. Tara would come home after school. She would take care of him as best as she could. This went on for this week. I took him back, and the doctor said, oh, he's just a teenager. He probably has mono. I'll take and do the blood work. So they did a whole bunch of blood work, and by this time it's almost into the second week, and he's not changed. Nothing's changed in him. The doctor said, well, he doesn't have mono. It doesn't show he has anything. He's 15. Maybe he's just depressed. He said, I'll send you to such and such. So this started the pattern. I would get sent from doctor to doctor to doctor. Nobody could figure out. And they kept saying he was depressed. Now, one good thing that saved me was the depression part went out the window really fast, because I worked at a counseling center with 3 counselors there. I was training under a 4th counselor. They all knew David, and the one counselor had known David since he was a little tiny boy. They knew our situation. They knew the kids real well. They knew everything. And all of them said, there is no way this kid is depressed. So I had 4 professionals, that not only knew him personally, but they used their professional stuff to say he was not depressed. That was a saving thing for me, because I was able to take documents saying that he didn't have that problem. So then the doctors got more serious about looking at physical things. And it just went on and on. And it was a nightmare, because you got to realize we were still using the wood-burning stove and having to do that stuff. Tara and I were overlapping. I would try to come home when I could from work. I cut back on my hours as much as I could. She would get home from school. Thank goodness she'd come home earlier, and she could take care of him until I got home, things like that. And it was just a juggling act. I would be up at night with him. It was just on and exhaustion. I thought I had been exhausted before, but this just put a whole new level. By this point, I was so tired. So I went, and I could tell my body was starting to collapse. I just couldn't do anymore. And so I went, and it had been going on for a few weeks. I thought I'm going to collapse. So I thought, okay, if I don't get rid of something here, I won't be able to start my new jobs in a few months, because my body will give out. And so I told them, it was around Thanksgiving. It was 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, and I told the guys at the counseling center I had to quit. I trained my new gal. Monday before Thanksgiving was my last day. And Tuesday morning, I woke up. The Tuesday before Thanksgiving, I woke up. I couldn't move. I could not move. I couldn't get out of bed. My head felt like it was just, somebody was taking a sledgehammer to it. My throat was just flaring up. And I think what happened was, it's the type of thing where the mom sees a child pinned under the car, and her adrenaline kicks in, and she lifts the end of the car up and drags the kid out. And then as soon as the kid's safe, she collapses from the adrenaline rush. And I didn't realize I'd been pushing my body, and I was getting sick too with what David had, but I had been fighting it so hard, trying to take care of him and to keep going, that when I quit that job and could be home, it just gave out. And I don't remember, I wish I could tell about what happened. I remember almost nothing. I remember the next day, this friend of mine came, that neighbor friend that I'd met at the counseling center, she came down, and she went and helped me get things ready for the meal. I was bound and determined to have Thanksgiving dinner. In spite of being paralyzed in bed, I was going to have Thanksgiving dinner. I was an insane person. So ladies, do not do this. Do not do what I did, do what I say, or something like that. She propped me up. I remember this, all I remember about this time period. I remember her propping me up in the chair, and I rested my hands on the edge of the table with a potato peeler. And within like 15, 20 minutes, I managed to get 4 potatoes peeled and put in the pan ready for the next day. She put the turkey in and she said, now Tara should be able to stick this turkey in the oven and turn it on. And I'm sitting there like, no, Tara can't.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see what Tara's going to be doing with this.
Might I remind you I'm a world famous cookbook author now?
Yeah, right. I beg to differ with you there. No. And I thought, what is she going to do to this turkey? But I had hopes. And I don't even remember Thanksgiving that year. I have no memory of it. And so then the next thing I remember, that whole time period is gone. I was literally in bed 24/7, doing the same thing David could. I couldn't wake up. I remember Christmas then. Dad came back for Christmas to spend Christmas, and he made this big elaborate bed thing on the floor so that I was half lounging and half sitting up. And he put it in front of the Christmas tree. How we got the Christmas tree up, presents, I think you did most of it. I really do think at that point it was kind of all over to you. But he got me into that bed thing for Christmas and we were opening presents, and he set a package on my lap. And he said, and I sat there with it, and I knew that my mind was telling my hands to open that package, but I couldn't get my hands to move and open that package up. I'm telling you these little details because we have a ton of people who write us and say, I thought I had chronic fatigue for 15 years, and I went to a new doctor, and come to find out I didn't have it at all. He gave me some medicine, he gave me a shot, and within a couple months I was healed. These people went all these years thinking they had chronic fatigue, and they didn't have it. And they could have been cured. And the next couple of videos, I'm going to go into details, lots of details, about what some of these symptoms are, and how we took care of it. Because I hear it's not a matter of I was just tired. It wasn't that at all. This went beyond just being tired, or I got worn out because I went shopping that day, or I went to the grocery store. This illness is devastating. It devastates your mind. It devastates your body. It affects your emotions because it affects your brain. We have, that one time they took images of somebody with, and don't you make a comment here, Michael, of people with chronic fatigue, and they had black spots and things on their brain. It does permanent, see? See, look at you're
Sorry.
laughing.
Just because it's my mother-in-law, that's all.
He's thinking this explains it all.
Now it's becoming very clear.
It's the brain cloud.
I was just waiting for it to come. That's why I got you ahead of you. And so it's a devastating illness. And it's not just I'm tired all the time. So I think we'll cut off here, if that'll work out for you guys, and start up do the next video and do it on more what happened then, because I couldn't work now. I had no income coming in. I had to deal with all kinds of stuff like that. I now had one child down, and the third one within a few weeks became sick too.
Not
So-
the third child, the third person in the
Second
family.
child. Third person, second child. You didn't know you had a secret brother or sister, did you?
Well, it was news
So
to
we'll
me.
go.
News to me.
So we'll quit here if it's okay with Tar and Mike, and we'll start. Then the next video, I'll go into more detail after this.
Okay.
Will that work?
And go visit us at Living on a Dime and check out Mom's Penny Pitching Mama, 500 Ways I Lived on $500 a month. So there you go.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. We'll see you later. Visit us at livingonadime.com.